the moment you've all been waiting for. Tonight's main attraction. I present to you International Freethinkers. Listening to the We Are Sober podcast.
All right, welcome, my lovely veterans. Happy Veterans Day to you.
You got to give everybody a minute to process that intro, okay?
Yeah, that bass, though, I was just like, damn.
I need to up my game. That was legit.
Thank you. I mixed it myself.
I was not ready for that, Jenna.
I'm sorry. I apologize. You know, Ollie Man, Jason, and Justin obviously are used to it, so I forget. I have new people. Speaking of new people, Bryce, welcome. Captain Dadpool, welcome. Nate Smith, welcome to being first timers on International Freethinkers. Appreciate having you three here. Of course, welcome back, Jason. And Ollie Man, you're always here. It's expected.
I try to be.
And sometimes I get invited too.
Well, as the immediate co-host, yes, you're mandatory to be here. So
I don't get so much invited as I'm, you're going to show up.
Yeah, voluntold.
Voluntold.
Yeah.
That's how that works. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I'll just, kind of go around the room, minor introduction. If you just, state your name, obviously, and just what branch of military you served, and we can just get started with a little conversation. Let's start with Jason, since you're already at the tippy top there.
All right. ET-3 Sherwood, United States Navy, aboard the USS Kitty Hawk, tip of the spear, now decommissioned. As you rust in pieces. I was the atheist in the foxhole, as it were. I served while being an atheist. I know some of us here, were, and some of us were theists. Doesn't matter as long as you get to where you need to be. I served 4 years and got to see a lot of really good stuff.
Very nice. Thank you for your service. Ollie Man, how about you?
Well, I was in for 3 years in the militia in the PEIR regiment, which is an armored reconnaissance unit. I spent a little over half that time in Call Out in Gagetown, which is a military base in New Brunswick. It's one of the biggest military bases in Canada. So, but basically, I just spent most of my time as a driver. I drove a lot of different, like higher level officers around and stuff like that, and drove for different exercises while we were on the go over there. So,
very nice. Thank you for your service as well, Brycearonee. How about you?
I am Master Sergeant Bryce, United States Air Force. Served 21 almost years, 20 years, 9 months, 17 days, I think.
Wow.
So I got out in 2018, so I'm still pretty fresh on the memory. But I was a theist. I was a Christian for the majority of my time, and I didn't become an atheist until 2016, 2017. So really the last couple of years that I was in is when my kind of, deconstruction happened. So I'm still a fairly, I guess, recent atheist, but yeah, I was a Christian for the majority of my time in, and then found myself kind of questioning it. And then kind of, I didn't believe anymore. And I could see all of the, how religious the military seemed as an institution to me after I had sort of found my way out of religion.
Wow. Thank you for your service, of course. Yes, Captain Dadpool, please tell us.
Yeah, I'm afraid I've been slightly dishonest with everybody. I'm not actually a captain. I'm actually a sergeant.
Liar!
I know. Yeah, I was active duty for 3.5 years. I joined in 2009. I was an infantryman in the U.S. Army. I was deployed to Iraq almost immediately. I was there for a year. I got out, and that's when I went to college using the GI Bill. I got my degree in biblical theology. And then I joined back in the National Guard almost 6 years ago. That's pretty much where I became an atheist. But definitely my time spent overseas was definitely a point where I started opening my eyes, I guess, to bigger things. And yeah, I have I get out in February. I'm very excited. I'm gonna grow out my hair and beard.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate your service as well. Nate Smith, how about yourself?
Hey, yeah, I'm Nate, Canadian. I was 6 years in the infantry. I volunteered for active duty in 1999 and was already an atheist at that point for quite a few years. I lost my faith when I was in my early teens. So it was an interesting experience being in and being around the chaplains and the various other religious folk who seek to glean some sort of meaning from the religious faith when there really is none. It's just people being dicks. But
basically
moving right along.
Moving right along. Thank you, Nate. Last but certainly not least, Justin.
Hello. For anyone that's kind of watched the show before, I'm a cradle atheist. So I've been non-religious or irreligious my whole life. I served 5 years in the Navy on a submarine from 2008 to 13. Deployed twice, Western Pacific deployments, doing that. I was a fire control technician, second class. The rate name is confusing because it's basically a weapon control technician for the submarine's weapon systems. And I went to A school. I went to training with someone that was a chaplain, and he was the designated driver for all of our activities. It was good times.
That's cool.
That sounds like
Hey, Justin, let me help you out. Because I was an ET, as I stated, and have in my little blurb here. But an FC is an ET with a hunting license.
yeah.
Is it true that there's like a height restriction for submarine service? Is that actually a thing?
No, but if you're around 6 feet tall or over, you're gonna have a bad time. They warned you about that up front.
I'm glad I volunteered for the infantry.
Also, there is a height requirement for the Coast Guard of 6 feet. So if your ship sinks, you can just walk back to shore.
Wow.
Yeah, expect those all night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I lost count. How many of you were atheists while you were in the army or in the military, by a show of hands?
I mean, I was at the end.
Yeah, I became.
I was both.
Sort of in the middle-ish.
Interesting.
I hadn't considered it seriously. Like in my teens, I stopped doing anything religious, and not because I'd stopped believing, just because I didn't want to be bothered with it and never even thought about it again, type of thing. And it wasn't until my late 20s, early 30s that I skeptically thought about it and realized, no, I don't believe in a God. So,
right.
I have a question for you guys, because I think I might be in the minority here, since most of you were atheists, it seems like, for longer than I was. When you were serving, did you get the sense that other people in the military were really religious, or that the religion was kind of incorporated into the institution?
Oh,
yes.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
When I was in basic, about a week into our basic training course, our chaplain came around and offered us some brief diatribe on, Christianity and how he was there to support us all, but also how he was there to support folks of all faiths. And so he offered a copy of the Bible or the Quran to anyone who wanted it. And I was like, I raised my hand and I'm like, I'll take a copy of the Quran. And he asked me, he says, well, are you Muslim? And I'm like, no, I'm an atheist. He's like, well, why would you want a copy of the Quran? And I'm like, Well, I've read the Bible, and I'm interested in other views of theology. So, if you're giving them away for free, I got nothing better to do in my off time other than clean my rifle. So, yeah, I'll take a copy of the Quran. And he's like, well, I don't actually have any, but I can get you one. So it's funny how he comes around, and these guys come around, and they're purporting to be inclusive of all religions, but really he's just there to push Christianity.
Right.
Yeah, if you would ask for a Bible, he wouldn't even ask the question. He would
no. That guy had like 20 copies. He had 20 copies of the New Testament, right?
Hardback, softback, red letters, what you want, I got it.
Yeah,
have any of you ever encountered
his jacket? He's got like them all like.
Yeah,
have you ever
he's got him coming out like the
trying?
Shiv from Assassin's Creed. He's like, here's your New Testament.
I've never seen a non-Christian chaplain. Have you?
Yeah, we all have.
They apparently exist. We've talked about them on nonprofits in the ACA show. The Harvard just has its first non-denominational atheist chaplain.
That's right.
But yeah, he
that's
did.
Recent, right?
That chaplain. It is very recent.
Yeah.
That chaplain actually did get me a copy of the Quran, and I read it. So to his credit, he did eventually manage to track down a copy of the Quran, and I still have it somewhere. It's kicking around here someplace.
What a good
That's cool.
We still have like prayers. Like every time there's a change of command, so like when an officer takes over the command of the unit, there's a whole ceremony. It's this whole thing.
Yeah.
Whenever we have like a company dinner or any sort of event, the chaplain will do a prayer, and they try to make it like sort of ambiguous to any religion, but like, it's always a white guy. It's Christian, It's always So it's
and God's always a man.
It's a white Christian man.
Prayer.
Yeah, of course it is.
So now, like as an atheist, and every time we do one of those, and he's like, "Let us pray," I'm like, "Fuck, God damn, here we go." I don't want to fucking pray.
Just kill me now.
Yeah,
I can't take.
Why
this
do I
anymore.
gotta pray to your God? Are you serious?
So when my ship was decommissioning, we were leaving Japan forever to go back to the States. I was standing duty when a call came out saying that there is a service for the ship, and it's going to be at the on-base chapel, and the CO wanted to have maximum participation. Now, I didn't have any watch that evening, and so my duty leader is like, "Hey, I want you to go there." I'm like, "Well, is this a religious service? I mean, it's a service, and I don't want to go there if it's a religious service." Like, no, go. It'll be fine. It's not that. Don't worry about it. I go there, and guess what it was?
It totally is.
So I'm pissed off. I'm sitting in the back, and when we got to a break, I'm just like, I'm just livid. I'm steaming, and an RP chief, a religious personnel chief, sees me. And it's like, what's going on, shipmate? I'm like, I told him the whole story, and he's like, "Oh, well, if you're an atheist, just get the hell out of here. Just get the hell out of here." So I went ahead and I got Subway, and I got back, meandered to the ship, and I put my section leader on blast. I'm like, if you ever do that again, I'm going straight to EO.
Wow.
Yeah. To answer Cray Cray's question, usually if I'm in a situation like that, I just kind of go through the motions. And so I would whenever they say, "Let us pray," I just kind of go through the motions and, wait till it's over. Cause
Do you bow your head and close your eyes though? Or do you just sit there with a neutral expression and your eyes open? Because that's what I did.
Yeah,
I would bow my head. Sometimes I would close my. I don't know if I actually closed my eyes, but I would present the appearance of bowing my head and closing my eyes because it didn't really matter to me. Like I didn't really have that. Maybe because I was new in the process and just transitioning out, that I still could sort of understand why other people were doing it. And I didn't want to disrespect anyone else. I didn't believe it anymore, but I wasn't trying to make waves either.
That's fair. I would kind of just stare straight forward.
Thank you, Kenneth. By the way, another service military vet too. Thank you as well. And surprisingly, and I'll let you continue, Ming. I apologize for cutting you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
Surprisingly, there are some questions from the chat. Thank you, chat, for questions, and I'll roll back to them in just a moment. And Nate, I'll let you finish.
Oh, all I was gonna say is I did the same thing during invocations that I did during family dinners, which was I would literally sit there with a particularly bored, neutral expression on my face, like, can we get this over with? Like, I want to eat some fucking turkey. Like,
Nate, that looks like more like bored sarcastic than bored neutral, buddy.
yeah. Well, there's a heavy dose of sarcastic in there, Ollie. You better believe it.
Nate,
Yeah.
don't you understand that if everybody's eyes are down and they're
Nobody sees
mumbling to themselves or whatever, you just be like, they can't see me. And if they see me trying to get at me, then they're breaking their own damn rules.
Can't see me if I can't see you.
Yeah.
Ow. Ow.
Where's your God at now?
I'm the Homer
That's
Simpson
funny.
of the military banquet society.
Wow. Now, I'll preface this question because Cray asked a very good question. This is something I've asked my stepdad because he served as a Marine during the Cold War. And so this was something that obviously coming from that, they weren't greeted back home very nicely. So her question basically is, I've heard you shouldn't thank veterans for their service because it can make them uncomfortable. I never want to be disrespectful. Any thoughts?
Oh yeah, I have many.
Plenty.
Yeah.
Somebody can go first though.
I would say
let's go first.
It's not that it makes us uncomfortable per se. It's just we don't ever know how to respond. Like what do you say? Like, and it happens all the time. I go to the gas station. Thank you for your service. Like, oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, you too.
Well, what do I say?
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah, great. Have a nice day.
Like my go-to response is like, it was a job. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for the fun of it. I signed up because like I didn't feel like there was other options for my life at the
I wanted
time.
to go to college.
Thanks for feeling trapped and having no options to be successful in life.
More for
My
lack
dad-
of knowing how to respond. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
My dad, who was Army, he would say his response is, "Thank you for the opportunity to serve." Just kind of like throw it back on them, and you know, I don't know which answer is really right. It's all individual. I posted earlier. Thank a veteran. They won't like it, but thank them anyways.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with everybody else so far. I think my answer is kind of complicated because I do think that it is very awkward when you're in that situation. You don't really know what to say back. It's like, are you supposed to say thank you? Are you supposed to say you're welcome? Are you supposed to, and then there's the other side of it where I feel like, I have served. A lot of other people have served. I haven't actually been in combat myself. A lot of people have been in combat. So I feel like they're the ones that I should be thanking. So it kind of feels a little disingenuous letting this person believe that I was out there saving the world. But then on the other hand, the flip side of that is it's something I did volunteer to possibly give my life, which is something that a lot of other people don't. So in the sense, maybe I did do something. I think that it does make a lot of veterans uncomfortable. The question I think the second part of the question she asked was, or maybe it was in the beginning, should you do that or should you not do that? I say that it probably should be done. And the reason I say that is because I think of all of the veterans like from the Vietnam era that got spit on when they got back. And I'm like, if the alternative to that is me feeling a little uncomfortable or trying to figure out an awkward response, I would choose that than people forgetting the sacrifices that people in the military actually do make, whether they were in combat or not.
This is an interesting follow-up. Just don't do it on Memorial Day.
Yeah, Memorial Day isn't our day. Memorial Day is for the ones who didn't make it home.
Right. Made the ultimate sacrifice.
I totally feel that, and the thing that always made me uncomfortable is I used to have veteran plates on my vehicle, and I actually had them taken off because the thank you for your service was always prefaced by the next question, which is, did you ever kill anybody? And my answer was always, if you ever meet another veteran, don't ask them that fucking question. It's not something people like to fucking think about. Like, what is wrong with you that's the next thing that you go to.
That kind of hints to another point too, is the vast, I'll go ahead and say the vast majority of people who say that are really just saying it for themselves, not for you. They're doing it to make them feel better. Like, oh, I thanked a veteran today. I'm a patriot. Like they don't actually
exactly.
You know, so like they don't actually give a shit. They're doing it for them. So like if you want to thank a veteran, like make it genuine. You could even like I've had people like strike up a small conversation like in the line at Sheets, like, oh, are you a veteran? Yes. Oh, where'd you serve? What'd you do? That's oh, cool. Well, thank you for your service. Like that's cool. Like that's but yeah, don't just come up to him at the gas pump, be like, hey, thank you for your service. Yes.
I don't think we get the did you kill anybody? But I did talk to
that is I have got that question so many times, Jason, that I literally got normal plates again.
I think that
because I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to have to answer that question. I got so fucking sick of it, and I got so sick of telling people that was a horrible question to ask. And I don't know why I need to tell people that. Like, honestly, why would you want to make someone relive that experience every day of their life?
So I think that's more of a Canada thing, because I've never heard it here. I've never anybody. Now, I did talk to
all the time.
I did talk to a Army vet who was in Iraq, and he did, standing as a gate guard, end up taking somebody's life. And he told me about it in as much detail as he felt comfortable with. But here's the thing. While he was telling me it, he was there. He was there in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't bring us back there. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I didn't push him on that. I did not, he felt like he needed to open up to me, and that's great. I still didn't know what to do with it, but it was great that he felt like he could open up with me on that one. And then as soon as he was done telling the story, it was like a switch, and he was back. And but like I said, for that moment, he was there. He was covered in dust and grime, and terror and sadness and everything that can go along with that. He was there, but he was able to find his way back.
I remember looking down at someone's hand and looking at their wedding ring on their hand and thinking, this person probably had a family. This person probably has kids that I don't know, that have nothing to do with this conflict, that have nothing to do with why I'm here. And now they have to grow up without a father. And every single time somebody asked me that, it brought me right back to that moment. And I hated it. And that's why I got rid of my veteran plates.
I've never been asked that question before, but I can imagine. It's hard to imagine what my response would be in this day and age, in this country anyway. Most of the people I know would probably recognize that as an inappropriate question. Most of the
You'd think so, but no.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like such a 12-year-old question to ask, or like some video game Call of Duty playing type person. It seems like a question they would ask.
Mm-hmm.
You would think so, but it happened to me enough times that I chose not to identify as a veteran because I didn't want to confront it every day in my day-to-day life. And especially when you tell someone that you were in the infantry and you were a machine gunner, and they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. Yeah. Like, this is not something people enjoy. Like, this is like Full
Metal Jacket.
But it's like, I did it because I felt I had no other choice. The reason I joined the Army because I was 17 and I was, I didn't like the way that my life was headed. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do something to change my life. And that was what I did. And I shaved my long hair the day before I went away to basic. And that was my thing. I was like, I don't like the way my life is going, so I'm going to change it.
Brute Facts podcast just left a comment, and it was the comment that sort of this type of comment sort of what got me to change my mind about my reaction towards when people say thank you for your service, and instead of just looking at the combat veterans, realizing that it really is like you were just saying. I mean, you know, you wanted to change your life, you did it for you. Yeah, that's all well and good, but at the end of the day, you still did something that a lot of people wouldn't even consider doing. You know,
I think that's easy to forget that the military it's an entire economy, it's an entire ecosystem with supply chain and logistics, and everybody from who's serving the food to who's delivering uniforms to who's delivering supplies. You know, without all of that happening, you can't deploy, you can't train, you can't be ready for anything.
And I sit here thinking back to my last job in the military. I was a unit deployment manager, so I was responsible for everybody deploying. And I actually, there wasn't a lot of redundancy, surprisingly, in that position at that time. If I had not shown up to work on the wrong day, a deployment could have been missed. Like we're talking hundreds of people, you know, in support of Afghanistan. So, you know, thinking about it in hindsight, I can see now my role in the military and how important it was. At least, you know, when
we deployed, I mean, our supply officer and our corpsman was probably the two most important people on the boat. Like, there's only one of each, and we literally can't function without them.
I got that too. There was a lot of elitism amongst the combat arms. We're the ones that are actually out there in the shit doing the firefights. But I never identified with that, because it's the people that do the behind the scenes work. They're just as important. They might not have the same role, but they're still doing a job that enables us to do our job. And if there's one thing that the military instills, it's a sense of teamwork. Like, none of this works unless everyone does our job.
I have a question related to that. So a lot of what we see sociopolitically is there's a lot of veterans being put on a pedestal, or current service members put on a pedestal as being representative of what a true patriot is. And a lot of them are being touted by, you know, the political right, or being weaponized against the political left, and saying, oh, if you don't support this, you don't support the troops, or whatever. And then me in my personal life, the local veteran support nonprofits and groups and local meetups, most of them are conservative. Most of them aren't, you know, don't want to be vaccinated. Like I had to argue with the president of the biggest local veteran support nonprofit in our area, because she kept posting anti-vax stuff on Facebook and basically telling the veterans to don't go get vaccinated. They did a local meetup where they were cleaning a cemetery and just cleaning off graves and stuff, which was really cool. But this was like last year, and they basically encouraged each other to not wear masks and no social distancing and all that stuff, because, you know, if you're, you know, to be part of the in group. And it's like, where did we lose that sense along the way? You know, Jason would know, but you know, you learn, you know, it's like your unit for your well, in the Navy, it's shipmate self. So it's like your unit, your team, and then yourself. So you put everybody before yourself when you're on mission, on station, or whatever you're doing. But for some reason, it's like you come across a lot of people, especially veterans, and they're like only about themselves and their family and maybe other veterans, and it's all in the name of freedom.
I saw that question from the One Good Reason, Mike Carey, fellow Air Force member. So happy Veterans Day, Mike Carey. He was asking about the atheist chaplains, and I think you guys kind of covered that at the beginning. But are they currently in? And I actually have no knowledge of this because I haven't.
Oh, I have a little bit of knowledge on that.
We sure do. We covered it on the nonprofits not too long ago. Go ahead, Jason.
So, you're talking about
So good,
the
Nate.
Harvard chaplain, which I don't think that's actually military, but
No, it's not, but it's still a good sign.
yeah. So
Step in the right direction.
there was going to be a Veterans Day nonprofit, but unfortunately, some of our veterans were not able to be a part of it. And there was an article back in 2018 that the Navy,
I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah, with pressure from Congress, said that under no certain terms are there to be any humanist chaplains.
Or secular humanists.
Secular
God
humanists.
forbid.
Yeah, they said under no certain terms will there be, and so that most likely will filter through the other branches as well, and that's honestly, I don't know how to feel about that, because would a secular humanist chaplain be more along the lines of a psychologist or a social worker, which I don't think is necessarily a bad idea.
Right.
It's just I don't know how taking that chaplain title and saying, okay, I'm going to make it mine. I guess you can do that, but I also have to wonder, why can't we just put them in?
It's so completely unnecessary to have chaplains in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Like we have mental health professionals that can help folks with PTSD or to cope with actual trauma that they experience while on deployment. To approach it from a religious standpoint is absolutely completely outdated. There's no benefit that they can add that a secular therapist cannot.
But there's a reason something like the Secular Therapy Project exists, is because you don't know what you're getting. You can't separate without something like that. You can't separate religious-based therapy.
Secular-based
therapy.
I would say, just from my own experience in the U.S. military, one of the reasons that people tend to go to chaplains instead of like the mental health agency or mental health unit on base is because there is still a stigma attached to the idea of seeing a mental health professional while you are active duty, and this idea that it could be damaging to your career, whereas people know that if they go to the chaplain, everything that is said there is confidential. It doesn't get back to their commander unless they say something like they're going to harm themselves or someone else. So that's the reason why people go to the chaplain.
That is such a good point. Wow. I've literally never thought of it that way. Wow. That is brilliant.
Yeah. I used to, ironically, one of the things I did when I was in is I taught resiliency, which includes spiritual resiliency. But spiritual doesn't necessarily have to be religious. It can be for people who are religious, but for the non-religious people, you just kind of do a little word games and semantics, and you talk about spirituality in terms of raising your spirits and finding, using it in a way that doesn't necessarily imply religion, but I can have a positive effect on someone's attitude. So I did a lot of that, and in doing that, I kind of had to explain to the secular people that that were there, the purpose of it, the benefit visiting a chaplain could be to them, or some of the alternatives that they could take advantage of. But just knowing the technical differences about the mental health, that it usually 9 times out of 10, or I should say 90%, will not have any adverse effect on your career active duty. But there's a small chance it could, depending on what is said, whether you have a top secret clearance or, there are certain jobs where
I had a TS
social
clearance.
stigma.
I had a TSSCI clearance, and just basically talking about anything with anybody has always sounded like a bad idea.
It's a red flag.
Yeah.
This is a burning question. Thank you, Sydney Watson, for being patient. These guys are talkers. I can't stop them. I love it.
We're sorry, Jena. She hasn't had a chance to get a word in edgewise, but
Sorry,
I
Go
don't
ahead.
need to.
Go ahead.
I don't need to. This is for y'all. Do you have any advice for skeptics who are going in conversations with recruiters, fellow recruiters, superiors?
Yeah, don't trust your recruiters.
Well, I would say
I mean, that's
more,
just general advice.
Yeah, that's not specific.
Job is to
more
get
specific
you
to
in.
religion. I
He
would
doesn't
say
care what you believe.
Hold on,
Yeah,
go
don't
ahead.
worry
Get
too much
you
about
Hold
it.
on. Go ahead, Captain.
Oh, sorry. Religion is not very intrusive in the military, by my experience. The only exception is like when they make you pray during, the change of command ceremonies and things like that. But other than that, it's a job. You're there, you do a job, and that's it. You go home or whatever. Like it's not that big of a deal to be a skeptic. Religion doesn't even get brought up a lot unless it is brought up. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can absolutely be a skeptic, atheist, or whatever. And it shouldn't cause you any problems.
Especially in this day and age. I mean, I think when I was serving a million years ago, it was a little bit more prevalent because I served under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
So did I.
Yeah. So if like back then there was still debate of whether gay people should be allowed in the military, and invariably someone would come with their religious beliefs talking about how offensive the idea is to them. So
Perfect lead into the next question. Perfect.
Look at that.
What's the climate of the Canadian military in regards to the LGBTQIA plus community?
Okay.
Anyway.
I was in the late 80s. So it
Opened a
wasn't
can of
spoken about
worms.
then.
Ollie, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just saying, I was in the late 80s. It wasn't even spoken about then. There was no mention of it. Nobody talked about it. If you were gay, you were completely in the closet.
So when I was in the late 90s, and there was still a policy of kind of don't say anything about it. The folks that were in my basic training course knew that I wasn't straight because I didn't really play along with the let's go out and get laid, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not really after the same thing you are, but there was some bigotry. There was some people being douchebags about the fact that I was gay when we were on training missions, when we were on basic or qualification missions or whatever. But when we actually got out into the field, no one gave a rat's ass. It did not matter. If you were a good soldier, if you were somebody that you wanted to have on your wing, it didn't matter who you wanted to fuck when you were done. Nobody cared about that shit. And I feel like that's been true since time immemorial. You can go back to even the Greeks, who had a habit of the men would sleep with each other in their military units, and they thought it promoted unit cohesion. Whether that's true or not, the fact that it was okay certainly promoted a more positive attitude towards your fellow humans and towards your fellow section mates, platoon mates, whatever you want to call it. But having served in the infantry in a combat role, I can tell you when the shit hits the fan, no one cares who you're gonna fuck when it's over.
So I was toward the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and we all knew. We all knew if somebody was
everybody
gay.
knows. Everyone knows.
We knew if somebody was going to be trans later on. When you're that close quarters with people, you know them.
Yes,
and nobody cares. I did see one person get processed out for a Don't Ask, Don't Tell violation. And the only reason that he got processed out is because he didn't want to be there and his command hated him. He didn't do work. He was garbage. He was basically
a
garbage.
shitbag.
Yeah, and that had absolutely nothing to do with his preferences. Because we had supply guys who would walk down the P-ways like it was a fashion runway. We would have.
mints.
I do have to say, there's a lot
and turn.
There's a lot of homoerotic things going on in the
Oh
military
yeah, absolutely. Like jokes
all the time.
I think
Yeah.
it was
So-
Winston
Hey, chicken.
Churchill when he was challenged about the traditions of the British military, and he said, "Oh, what's that? Sodomy, liquor, and insubordination, or something like that." That was his quote about the British military,
I
the
thought
British
that was the
Navy.
American Navy, but what do I know?
I will say though, in regards to being in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that would be one area. If you are LGBT and you were serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and you were having some sort of issue where you wanted to talk to someone, the chaplain probably wouldn't be the person that you would go to,
No.
because that
No.
you would also have that fear or that stigma that, hey, this guy's in the military. He's clearly against gay people. He has motivation now to basically turn me in. So you can't, Don't Ask, Don't Tell applies to everyone in the military, whether it's the chaplain or not, technically. So
You know what I just-
as
You know, I
far
just
as like,
thought of, sorry, in
go
regards to being a skeptic in the military, one thing I just realized is we have a ton of people trying to get a religious exemption for the vaccine, right? I got it as soon as I was able to. In fact, I got like 4 or 5 months ago. But there's a ton of people who are like literally considering getting out or trying to get a religious exemption. And I'm like, since I'm an atheist, if I was against the vaccine, I'm not. But if I was, I wouldn't be able to go to the chaplain to get that exemption. Like, but
and I don't understand that. I don't understand. Unless you were like
That's a good
Christian scientist, those seem to be the only ones who got the exemption. But like, when your command told you, "Hey, it's your birthday, go down to medical. They're going to stick something in you." You just did it.
Whoa! It's not Thursday. Whoa!
It is Thursday.
Thursday.
It actually is Thursday.
Oh, it is Thursday. Okay, go on.
That's right.
Carry on.
But it's like you go down to medical. They give you a shot of who knows what. You don't know. You don't ask. They don't. Wait.
I didn't even have the option of going down to medical. We normally get all of our shots in the chow line.
God
You're
damn.
just standing there as an innocent bystander.
Whoa! What?
And you get a drive-by
Just
vaccine.
Jab you in the ass.
that's a new one.
I don't know if you guys remember,
We at
but
least
when
had
I was in basic
like a
training,
shed.
I stood in a line where they jabbed everybody, and no one was allowed.
Yeah.
You weren't even allowed to speak. But
Yeah.
you couldn't ask, "Hey, what is that?" Or what am I getting? This is a religious exemption. There was none of that. You got what they told you to get.
Everybody got the peanut butter shot, and they
peanut butter,
drew like 6 vials of blood.
And if you deployed, you got a whole lot more. Like I got the anthrax.
Yeah.
I got anthrax.
Fuck yeah.
Too. Yep.
Anthrax is like 4 shots too. It's relentless.
I got a bunch of shots
That
before
was no
I
fun.
went over to Europe. Yeah,
And that was controversial at the time. But of course,
because we got anthrax before. At least they're waiting for COVID. They waited for it to be approved by the FDA. We got anthrax way before it went to the public or was approved or anything. They came out with it. They gave it to everybody. You went on with your day.
And it was not optional.
Well, this is the best we got. Your skin might melt off, but you know what?
And the way
there's
so everybody
10,000 more
knows-
people waiting.
Just so everybody has a good picture, the way they administer the anthrax shot is imagine like a needle, like a sewing needle, and you turn it upside down, and you take the eye of the needle and you dip it in like liquid anthrax or whatever the fuck, and they go, hold on a second, and they stab you like 20 times. You're like, oh, what the fuck are you doing to me? Like that's
And
what
don't
the anthrax
don't
shot
scratch at it. You scratch at it, it's going to spread, and and they won't help you because they told you don't scratch at it.
And then like
And
2 weeks
what
later, it
happened?
falls off in the shower, and there's this big crater in your arm. It's
Yeah,
all juicy. Yeah, that's what that was. So this
So,
COVID
not right.
shot is weak
it
sauce.
says, given my experience with military men and the uber male attitude, it would seem the bigotry would have an extremely high rate of instances. Is that a valid inference? I think so. I don't. In my experience, it's not meant to be bigotry. More so as it's just people like bullying and harassing each other because they're bored or they want to. They think it's going to encourage you to elevate to their level. It is what some of it is. It's a really, really terrible form of just trying to elevate somebody. And a lot of times it doesn't work, but
no.
I would say that sometimes it's that, but maybe my experience is unique being a minority in the military. Yes, I agree with Justin. A lot of times it's people intentionally trying to, poke at people to kind of get them to perform. Sometimes it's done in jest. Sometimes it's done, in a joking way. But then I've also been called the N-word, and the guy was like deadly serious.
Oh, I'm sure.
Actually, he didn't call me the N-word, but he used it in front of me in a derogatory way, assuming that it would be.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, I was the only black person in the room at the time, and it was 5 white people, and I guess he assumed that, and then he did look at me and said, "Hey, don't take this the wrong way."
Yeah. So
somehow,
don't take this the wrong way, but I'm a
no.
fucking asshole.
FYI.
somehow your military bond overrides that, and you're
Yeah.
cool with it.
Yeah.
So I have seen that a lot, but that type of thing, maybe it's different now. This was early in my career, but that was fairly commonplace.
When was your career again? Like what time?
I was in from 98 to 2018.
Okay.
Almost 2019,
Okay.
December 2018.
Long
So
time.
this would have been like 2001, which
Mhm.
was when I was deployed. That right after September 11th is when I deployed. So my first deployment. Is
Okay.
Yeah,
when-
cray. Just to follow up on that, yes, you guys were saying you got pretty much the anthrax vaccine before it was FDA approved, just jabbed with it. But now all of a sudden there's a special circumstance with the COVID vaccine. Now you can get religious exemption, and no one can say ifs, ands, or buts about it.
It's
Right.
just
Because the
it's
anthrax thing wasn't public, and it wasn't something that civilians were getting. So it
Oh,
wasn't
because it's so
publicized.
political.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't
highly
political.
politicized.
Yeah.
And we
This
also
is
got the
political.
H1N1, like the flu vaccine or whatever, was
Mhm.
like, all right, it's hot off the press. Everybody get it now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we,
that's just an example of politics infiltrating military command decisions. Which
So we
sucks.
actually we were there for the swine flu, and we actually had a breakout on my ship, and there were mask mandates for people who were infected, and we did quarantine people. Like we had a whole berthing sectioned off. Only medical personnel could go in and out of it, and they were covered from head to toe. They had proper PPE and all that, and it was understood that if you're sick, you don't get everyone else sick. It's such a strange concept when you say it now.
Yeah.
And people talking about religious exemptions, they're doing it because of the fetal cell lines, but they some places are requiring them to also forego other medications made with fetal cell lines, which would be terrible because Motrin is made with fetal cell lines, and it's like the only medication the military has.
Yeah.
Tylenol,
Vitamin
Pepto-Bismol.
M.
And an 800 milligram ibuprofen.
And change your socks.
Yeah.
Always
Wow.
change your socks.
Add that to
Always.
the prescription.
Always change your socks.
That's
Yeah.
not a prescription.
Oh,
And I would
nasty
say
STD.
to answer, Craig was asking about how there's religious exemptions for the military. I can't speak for Canada, but in the United States, the president of the United States is the commander in chief in the military, and he is a political entity. So
And guess
whether we're
what time
talking
that
about
happened?
Well, ultimately,
whether we're
it
talking
goes
about
to
Donald
the-
Trump or
ultimately it
Joe
goes to the
Biden.
Surgeon General. The Surgeon
Pardon?
General is the one who decides if to approve or deny them.
That's true,
and
but the president has
still-
the authority he could do an
Yeah, he
executive
can do a
order,
mandate, yeah.
or he can do a mandate for the military. So he could make it happen at the snap of a finger.
But the
the
Surgeon
reason he
General is the one who
doesn't-
approves or disapproves the
right.
exemption. And
But
even
he
if
would
it
have a
is-
motivation not to do
Yeah.
that right now
And even if
because
it's
of how
granted,
political it
he
is.
could remove those exemptions. So, like, if there's an outbreak in your unit, he can, like COVID starts spreading in your unit because so many people are unvaccinated. He can pull all of those exemptions like that.
Yeah.
So Jena, scale of 1 to 10, how much are you regretting having a bunch of vets come on and pontificate for an hour on your show? While
Hey, let's
you
answer the
sit
libido
there
question.
and think,
that
what
was
the hell have I done?
It's not my show. It's mine and Justin's show. And I wanted to do this because, since I work with both you and Jason with the nonprofits, we unfortunately didn't move forward with that show for veterans. So I was like, well, fuck it. I'll do it on me and Justin's show.
Is there a
That is
shot?
a myth. That is a
That
myth.
is a total myth.
Let me explain it.
Saltpeter
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is a complete and absolute fabrication. That is.
Let me explain
not
how
a
this
thing.
works. All right.
Uh-oh.
When you get into basic training and you get all these shots, you sort of lose your sex drive, sort of. And that's because you're surrounded by men constantly. You're training constantly. You shower with a bunch of other people. You sleep around. You're never alone.
You're sleep deprived.
Yeah, you're sleep deprived, you're tired. So you just don't think really sexual thoughts all that much just because of the atmosphere that you're in.
And let me add to
That
that.
Yeah.
From the LGBTQ perspective, because there's some people that would say, well, if you're gay and you're surrounded by a bunch of dudes,
Hey, I'm gay too. I'm gay too. Okay.
So, but
So,
the
you know.
answer, I mean, that still applies whether you're straight, gay, bi, whatever the case may be. If you're under high stress, sleep deprived, and by the way, you don't want to be the one guy who is.
Well,
if you're showering naked with
Who gets caught diddling himself.
You're literally too
had,
tired to give a shit.
We had the one guy. We actually did have that one guy who
Please tell that story.
He sat on the bench of the shower. Like he would finish the shower as quickly as possible, and then he would sit outside on the bench just staring into the showers.
Wow.
Like
that's
okay.
That's
all right.
ballsy.
I got one for you.
I don't know
I
if
got
he was
one
actually,
for you.
I don't know
now
if he
the
was actually
stories are
gay
coming
or
out.
he wanted to get out. But Nate, go ahead.
Now we're spilling the tea.
Yeah, we spill on this tea. Okay, so my basic training course, we had a Rwandan guy. I remember his name to this day. His name was Gahamanyi, and it was
Gahamanyi,
to
if
his
you're watching, I'm
fucking knee. Okay, to his fucking knee, and he was an amazing soccer player, amazing guy, great soldier, but every other white boy in the group would see him in the shower and be like, "Oh my fucking god!"
I feel like
So,
everyone has a story.
One day, I ask him after he comes out. I come out and I'm like, "Dude, what do you even do with that thing?" And he says to me in his thick African accent, he says, "Hey, you can't use this against these skinny white women. You need a big black woman." I'm like, oh my god, I fucking died.
This is why we.
That was so amazing because he literally didn't even care. He was so unashamed of his tripod, and he was just like, you know what, this is what I got. This
Live your best life,
evolution
man.
gave me.
Live your best life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jena.
You can't use it against these little white women. You need a big black woman. I died.
See, that's the type of dialogue you're not going to get in the civilian world.
No, not so much.
No, you're not going to get that. You can't have a conversation with a straight man about his penis in any other context. It's
locker
not
room
going to happen.
humor. Got it. Okay.
I had
This is locker room humor.
I'm sorry, Jenna. I'm sure you weren't ready for this, but
Nate,
this is the shit that happens. Okay.
We'll talk later.
I had a guy when I was
okay.
deployed to
We'll talk
Macedonia.
later. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
This guy went.
This is a real thing that happened,
Right,
though.
let's
This
try
is
one
what
Hold
happened.
on,
Right,
Nate.
try
Hold on.
Let me talk.
Go ahead, Dadpool.
So the guy was going to. He was just going to pee by the tire of a Humvee, and one of my buddies went up behind him, like stomach to back, pulled his out, and started peeing between his legs, like through his legs, like almost crossing pee streams, right? But like they were in front of each other. I got a picture of it. I can share it, but I won't go. I won't. But yeah, that's like he just walked up to him, just as
Are
comfortable
you sharing
as could be,
something, Dadpool?
and just started. Yeah, so that's the. Type
I've
of
got a
shit.
question about that.
Have you
Did
not?
you take the picture? And did you take the picture from behind both of them?
I was behind
from the
both of them.
side. Okay.
I was behind both of them.
Has
And why were you
Ghostbusters?
taking the picture?
Because why not?
For
Yeah, why not?
posterity?
For Facebook?
Okay.
Duh.
But
Oh, okay.
Jason?
All right.
Ghostbusters,
That's fair.
Ghostbusters
Yeah,
have
that's
taught
fair.
us you don't cross the street.
Not
Yeah,
gonna
they're
lie,
going-
I would take that picture too.
So would I.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank
Never
you.
cross streams.
Did we want to actually ask the? I know the question was asked about atheists and foxholes. I know that's kind of the theme, but we never really addressed the question.
Yeah, we haven't got
No.
into that.
Well,
But
you
everywhere
know,
else.
I can only manage a ship for so long. Yes, we can address that. There was another important question by the one good reason I want to bring up too. But yeah, let's dive into that one, please. No atheists in the foxhole.
Not true.
Not
Yeah.
true. Absolute bullshit.
I have an alternative theory. I think that there are only atheists in foxholes.
Hmm.
And I usually throw this out there whenever I hear somebody bring that up, because everyone in a foxhole that I've never been in a foxhole, but I've seen it on TV, right? So I have a good imagination of what being in a foxhole would be like, maybe, if Hollywood hasn't failed me. Everyone in a foxhole is scared, except like the crazy person, right? Like there's one crazy guy who's mentally unstable who's happy to be in a foxhole, but everyone else, the other 12 or 50 people, are scared shitless. And this applies whether they're theists, atheists, whatever they call themselves. If you are a theist and you think God is on your side and protecting you and watching you, and that you're going to heaven even if you do die, what's there to be scared of? So
Yeah.
if you're saying prayers and God's watching you and he's going to protect you, or if you're saying prayers and God has a plan for you in the afterlife, then there's nothing to be scared of. If you're an atheist and you know there is no one watching you and there is no afterlife, that's a reason to be scared. So anyone who's scared in a foxhole is probably an atheist.
And
I know,
that's a
Justin,
much
you had-
more noble reason to be in a foxhole, knowing that
Yeah.
this is the one shot you get. And if you're done, you're done. That's it. That is
Yeah.
such a much more noble reason to actually be involved in military endeavors. For
And
Now
sure.
let me
Yeah.
throw out the disclaimer, because I know that Brute Facts podcast is gonna punch me in the face with this one. I don't actually believe that. That's just what I say.
I was going
as
to
a
say,
response.
I think that the truth might be somewhere between those two extremes. Because
Yeah, the truth is there's atheists, Christians, Muslims, and everyone else. And
Sure.
the same people who are out of the foxhole are the same people who
Yeah,
are
but
in the foxhole.
what you're
I can see
saying,
the situation though.
yeah, what you're saying makes sense. Like it, and we talk about it in all different contexts. Like if you're a true believer and you really believe that this life is a test or a stepping stone or just it's temporary thing, and there's some permanent, heaven waiting for you if you do these certain tasks, you would just be like racing towards these tasks and I need to do this and this and this, and let me just move on to the real deal instead of like trying to make such a huge difference and
Yeah.
play, whatever it is you're playing to here in life.
It's kind of going through the motions, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm.
you're just,
Get me out of this
Piggybacking
practice
off of what,
run.
Right.
Piggybacking off of what Bryce said, when you come under fire, what do you reach for? Your weapon to defend.
Yeah, you don't reach
yourself.
for your cross.
Yeah,
Or
you
Bible.
don't just that's what you have faith in is your rifle.
yeah.
Or maybe
I
you
really
could
only
use
use
Bible.
that.
That's a pretty thick book to shield you from bullets.
That's true.
Well, and you don't even have faith in that, because what do you do with that rifle? You're constantly cleaning it. You're constantly working on it. You're constantly,
Testing
you're not gonna just let it sit there and be like, oh man, I'm gonna have faith in this thing that it is going to work. Like, no, you have demonstrable evidence because you have worked with that weapon. You know that weapon. And if you don't, it's
Mhm.
not a good weapon.
There are many like it, but this one is yours.
This one is mine.
God.
So I don't
Okay.
use that argument for real, like that, as if that's my real position. It's just a response to someone who says there's no atheists in foxholes, to show how stupid the statement is. You can,
So absolutely ridiculous.
yeah.
I usually say when at moments when you're like most fearful, that's when you're the most irrational. Right? That's when you start when you're not thinking the clearest. You're not thinking logically.
Well, yeah, you default back to your instincts,
Yeah.
muscle memory,
Your training.
yeah, deep training. things that you basically you turn off your brain and just react.
Mhm.
And the
we
reason
all
you do so much
evolved
training
that.
in the military is so you don't freeze up during that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Isn't
it's
there a
something to fall back
monument
to.
or a statue somewhere to or memorial to the atheist soldier somewhere?
No, probably not.
You know what I'm talking about? In the
Really?
US.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
there is.
I
Hang
hope
on, look it
so.
up.
There should be, but I
Look
don't know
that
that there is.
Never heard of it.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, and a lot of that training, it doesn't leave you. A lot of things don't
Yeah.
leave you, and so that's why when you have a situation that it's like some other person might be like, oh man, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, a lot of military members, they'll stop,
Alabama.
be able to look at that situation and then react to it.
So yeah, I got that up if you want to hear about it.
Yeah, FFRF.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was planted by the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah,
It's
go
called
ahead.
Atheists and Foxholes. It was planted in 1999 in Lake Hatia, Alabama. And it just says, in memory of atheists and foxholes. Let me pull this over here on the other screen so I can read it. And the countless freethinkers who have served this country with honor and distinction, presented with hope that in the future humankind may learn to avoid all war.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if it's done as a response to, like, I'm assuming, did I hear that correctly, that was done as a response to No Atheists and Foxholes, that they intentionally put the
it actually said the No Atheists and Foxholes Monument or something like that, or the Atheists and Foxholes.
I mean, if you're doing it as a response to that, then fine. I would probably be cautious about, like, if atheists started erecting atheist monuments in the name of atheism, because that's religion, right?
Well,
I might push back on that a little bit, because I think something like that would more normalize atheism. Like, here's a monument for a bunch of people who don't believe in an afterlife. Like, that's so
and
weird.
yet still
so
volunteer
weird,
to
It's not really, yeah.
Yeah, we
so,
still
like, there's
volunteer
people
to
out there
give it.
like us.
I see the good intention behind that. I don't know that would be.
Yeah, people absolutely going to conflate it with, oh, you're just another religion, just like they're going to say
It could
that.
be counterproductive.
I mean,
but
still
if
better
people
than a
actually
Confederate
understood the
statue.
position of atheism and that this is the one shot we get, and yet we're still willing to risk what limited time we have in the defense of what we think is right, that is infinitely more noble than the theist that says, I'll give my life, but I honestly believe that I'm going to paradise after, so it doesn't matter what happens here.
Yeah.
And the Satanic Temple has been doing things like that for a long time.
Yeah, they have.
And it's basically the easiest way to get them to remove the religious statues and monuments.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Okay, and then because that touches on the Satanic Temple. That's an atheist organization, right? They don't actually believe in Satan or
no,
anything.
No, those are Christians.
Satan is
they're spicy atheists. So I call them.
Right.
Spicy,
And so if they're doing that, it's kind of genius, because of course the majority, which is Christians, are not going to want
Baphomet on their state lawn, the state capitol lawn. Yeah.
So they would say they would ban all religious monuments before they allowed a satanic monument. Right. Which is, I guess, is the whole point of them doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, final question, just so we can wrap it up. I feel this was a very good and important question that the One Good Reason asked earlier on in the show. I worked in the mental health life skills unit for a few years. Can the panel speak on their coping mechanisms due to lack of secular support in the military?
I am qualified for this question.
Uniquely.
I can speak to this.
Solid question.
I drank a lot.
Yeah.
I drank a lot.
Can you pull that question back up? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No. You're fine. One moment. Scroll along. Okay.
I drank a lot.
I would say, I mean, I agree.
That's all I have to say. I drank a lot.
I did drink a lot. So this is something I haven't really talked about this publicly, so this will be my coming out of this particular story. But I did drink for a period of time. It was right towards the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but still kind of in that period where I was questioning whether I was even going to remain in, because it was getting difficult for me not having a social life and not, and living my career. So I didn't, like I mentioned before, couldn't go to the chaplain, couldn't really talk about it because don't ask, don't tell. Right. So yeah, I drank, and it was to the point for a while where I was referred to the program we have in the Air Force. Is called ADAPT, but it's basically an intervention for people who consume. And I was referred to a 28-day facility, and I had to go through. They put me in the psych ward, which was like this, detox. It was pretty fucking horrifying, actually. You don't want to go there, but I did have to go to AA, which was part of the thing. And then guess what that was? That was religion.
Very religious based.
So,
absolutely.
so I got forced into religion by the military because of my drinking. So drinking may not be the answer, not to mention all of the health, and you could destroy your life faster by drinking, but it seems like you're self-medicating at the time. That is one of the things that people do, not the recommended thing to do. But I can only say from experience, it's what I did before I found, better paths. I didn't know about secular humanism, and I didn't know about, atheist groups, and there was no one really there to help me in that way. But I did have a strong social support network and close friends and people to take care of me. So that's kind of probably what saved me. So yeah, just wanted to answer Mike's question there. And he was Air Force too, so I think he knows about all these different programs that I'm talking about.
I didn't have much in the way of a support group. I had a couple of close friends that we would joke around and all that. And I actually met my partner while in the Navy, and we were on the same ship, which we didn't keep it on the down low, but we also didn't advertise it. But I was also incredibly angry at those times, and there was a time where my coping mechanism just did not work at all, and I stood out on the fantail of the ship, ready to jump off the side, and I didn't.
You probably have. I don't want to assume, but a lot of people who would have told the story that you told have PTSD right now, non-combat related PTSD, because it's a common condition in the military. There's combat PTSD and there's non-combat PTSD. And if you served at any point from that period, you probably have one or the other. So that's like basically the majority of people in the military. That's what was told to me by the person I ended up being treated by for depression when I went. And when you're getting out of the military and you're trying to look at all your medical benefits and VA benefits, you get referred to a lot of people. So these are the mental health people at the VA telling me when I'm questioning, no, I don't think there's people with real PTSD and I haven't been in combat and I'm fine. They would listen to my story and they're like, no, you're not. You're like most of the other people who have PTSD in the military. I was like, oh shit. So
did you have any more to that, Jason? Or
I mean, I did eventually have to talk to not the they had somebody down in medical who dealt with that and made an assessment and I was able to kind of like calm myself down enough to where they weren't going to do any kind of actions or further that. It was a very, very, very low point, and one that I eventually was able to pull myself through, basically by planning my escape. My escape, still got an honorable for it, but well, you see the result of my escape. was PRT failures.
But you're alive.
I am.
Yeah.
And look, that time sucked. There's no two ways about it. But I did get to do some amazing things. I got to see some amazing ports. I got to make lifelong friends, then lifelong enemies. You know, as much as I hated, 99.999% of it, I would not be the person I am today. I would not have the friends that I do. I would not have the support network that I do if I didn't go that route first.
Anyone else?
I think Captain Dadpool said he's uniquely qualified to answer this.
Well, that was the question was asked. The other person who asked it was they worked in the mental health unit. What coping mechanisms? I worked at a maximum security juvenile detention center for 3 years on the mental health wing, and so we talked a lot about coping mechanisms and everything. That's where I met my wife. But it's not really relevant to the question. Now that I think about it.
That's how I cope.
Well,
You good, bro. You good. Carry on.
So here, I kind of have a unique perspective because I am combat MOS, and pretty much everybody I'm surrounded by, they're not religious. They are conveniently when a vaccine comes about that they don't want to take, but I don't have a lot of skeptics. What I do have is a shit ton of hardcore Republican Trump supporters. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I have a lot of macho men type things, and I'm just not that guy. They all hunt, they enjoy sports, and Trump is the Messiah. So I'm obviously not that. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Joe Biden. I enjoy working out and doing physical things, but I don't do sports. I don't own like an armory. I like guns, but I think there should be gun regulation. So all that to say, I found myself to just be very, very different from everybody that was around me. And I was just like, I'm getting out of the military. And at the time, it was like, I got like 2 or 3 years left. So I just sort of disassociated. I sort of withdrew. I don't really interact with people very much anymore because I'm in the National Guard. That means I only go once a month for 1 weekend a month. But an exception is I went to Philly after the riots, and I went to DC after the insurrection.
Wow.
So there, I was with them all the time and had all those interactions, and I couldn't really separate myself from them. So I had a lot of very interesting conversations.
Yeah,
so
that's why. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that type of person is so common, and even now as veterans, like I was mentioning earlier with the local veteran support groups, that I don't feel comfortable even volunteering or hanging out or going to the community center that they built or doing anything with them because it's like you have to be a very specific type of veteran or a very specific attitude.
You have to fit a mold.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what veterans are. They're just the military people in general. They're macho men. They vote Republican. They're Christian. Blah blah blah. And if you're not that, you're just not going to get along with them. They might not say you're not like no true veteran fallacy, but you're just not going to have a lot of common with a lot of people.
That's
Do
not
you guys
to
think
say
that
like
that's changing in the current generation? Like, do you
What's
think do you think it's trending more towards being a little bit more inclusive to different political ideologies? I think it is.
It kind of is,
especially in Canada. In Canada, it's definitely trending the other way.
But I think the people that don't lean that way are just not joining. Right? They're not there because the ideology that goes against it is also against wars. It's against the military-industrial complex. It's against a lot of other stuff that goes along with that. So they're just not joining in the same numbers.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but there's also people who are like myself who, couldn't get to college on their own and didn't have parents that would pay their way and all that. And so having the military was that, okay, that's where you get your college and all that.
Yeah,
But, Bryce, I have one question. You keep on mispronouncing it. It's supposed to be chair force.
Ooh, here we go.
Shade. Ladies and gentlemen, he'll be here.
Shots fired. Pun intended.
Oh God.
Wow.
No,
I
that's
thought we
fine.
we're gonna do this tonight, but you know what? Apparently
told
we're
me.
doing it. So
No
You know,
told me.
I have to say,
I had no rules.
for at least a pre 9/11, it literally was the chair force. I mean, I sat in a chair as often as I was out on the flight line. So things did change somewhat. We became more like the military after 2001.
When I joined in 2008, I talked to all the recruiters, and the Air Force recruiters told me like specifically, if you want to join and advance, don't join the Air Force. They said the job for most of them is so easy and so comfortable. People just stay in forever and they never retire, and the rates never open up. And it's advancement is very difficult.
Who told you that?
So yeah, join the Air Force. Are you high? Join the Air Force. If you get the chance, don't do what I did. Oh my God.
I think it was actually the Marine recruiters or the
Oh,
Navy
it was
recruiters.
Does it for a year with no water or internet.
Recruiters are trustworthy.
Don't do
You
what
should
I did.
always believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on a submarine. We were our only communication was you send an email that goes out like once a month or whenever they feel like sending them out. And if you're lucky, you can like watch a DVD sometimes.
That's rough.
100 men go down and 50 happy couples come up.
I like it.
He has all the sayings.
A few of them, yeah.
I do want to clarify something really quick about what I said.
Please.
That's not to say I was ever mistreated or picked on or anything. I am a sergeant, and I'm also a good soldier and a squad leader. So I was never alienated by anybody. I more or less alienated myself. So yeah, I just want to clarify. I don't want anybody like listening to think like, oh, I'm going to go in and everyone's going to pick on me for being a leftist. Like they will, but
I never talked about politics.
filthy
unless it was with
communist
people
bastard.
I really knew, like people I really knew who were in my
don't talk
unit,
about it.
and I knew that the conversation wasn't going to go out. Then there would be a little bit of political stuff, and yes, oftentimes I would end up being in the minority, but I was pretty confident about my ability to explain why I believed the way that I did, and a lot of people didn't have good comebacks when I did that, and so I was. It didn't really bother me that much to be in the minority. I've been in the minority in like 15 different ways while I was serving, so I guess maybe I just had a thick skin and I was used to it and knew how to navigate that and which people to talk to about certain subjects and which people to not have that conversation with.
I have a quick fun story. When you start, if you haven't established a relationship or rapport or whatever in the unit, you can come out and be more open about your political beliefs or whatever, and you won't get too much flag. In fact, people will start to have those honest conversations with you. In these past few drills, since the vaccine mandate came down, me being like one of 3 or 4 people who've actually gotten it, I've had people come to me who were skeptical about it and start talking to me about it. Like I had one guy who's a friend of mine. He's like, I got a career. He's a parole officer. He's got 2 kids, a wife. He's like, I can't lose my career over this. And I was like, you don't have to, man. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that deep. It's just a vaccine. Like the shit's just blown out of context. And so this is like a conversation that went over like a few days, but he eventually was like, you know, I think I'm going to do it. Like it's not worth it to give up my career. I don't. So like, yeah, you can have, once you get to a certain point, you can have those honest conversations and people will actually come to you to challenge their beliefs.
What were his beliefs? Like, what was he afraid? Did he think it was going to harm him, or was he just listening to political people?
He wasn't like, he didn't do the whole religious thing. He wasn't worried about the like fetal involvement in the development. I think he was worried about like the long-term effects type thing. And so I explained to him, was like long-term effects like take place over a few weeks, maybe 2 months. And that's why the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was pulled off the shelves, is because after 2 months, like a handful of people developed like heart palpitations or whatever they were, blood clots. and they fixed it and then put it back. Like, so that's how long it takes. Like, the vaccine is not. That's not how a vaccine works. Like, you're not going to get a vaccine and then like 9 years later, everyone's just going to fucking die or kill over. That's not how.
You haven't been talking to
and
my
if you do, that's
coworkers.
coincidence.
Yeah, you haven't been talking to my colleagues.
Yeah,
No.
using the whole like we don't know the long-term effects. It's like, no, we do know the long-term effects.
But this is like a Joe Rogan argument. So they're all watching. They're all people who watch Joe Rogan and
well, if you ask them what they would count as long-term, they go, well, you know, like 10 years.
Yeah,
like that's like the generic default answer, right?
So
they don't understand how it works.
What's the long-term effects of not having the vaccine is death, and that's very fucking long-term.
Yeah. Like, you're not injecting a ticking time bomb into your bloodstream. Like, that's going to go off in 10 years. That's fucking stupid.
I mean, I work in construction. I've had various roles in construction, and I'm like, dude, the shit that we're exposed to on a construction site in any given day is far worse than any vaccine you can get. So don't worry about that.
I work in construction too. I make that same point. I'm like
don't worry.
No, try having that same kind of irritating conversation as a nurse, and you have an organization that's mandating you to get these vaccines or else you are terminated. And we were privy to, get the report of, tens of thousands of staff within my organization, within my service area that I work in, got terminated.
How is that possible, Jena, with nurses who understand medicine and the germ theory of disease and know that it's nonsensical, this idea?
They don't. It's just, nursing pays well. That's it.
Yeah, the vaccination rates,
they're not virologists.
Go up as the further you get towards being a surgeon or immunologist and virologist. Yeah. So the medical field in general is very, very wide and vague.
I just think it's important for us to say that out loud, because there are people who will use the argument, look at all these nurses who aren't getting it. Why wouldn't they be getting it?
Every doctor and surgeon and immunologist and virologist and the people that actually studied this stuff and or doctors that have to keep up with it, they're all vaccinated, like every one of them.
Tangent, but I enjoyed that last tidbit. Thank you for sharing. And I know the chat had other questions, but by all means, if any of you have time, we do have a Discord where we do pop in there for a while just to relax, hang out, chit chat, whatever, it doesn't matter. But by all means, you're welcome to join in. Oh, hi, James.
They can't even see me because you're pulling
me
out of
frame.
James.
I'm insisting.
Jesus Christ!
I'm insisting that he come be my trophy husband for the last moment to prove that there are gay veterans. We do exist.
Thank you.
Even if they're camera shy.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate all of you for being here and sharing your stories, whether they've been locker room humor or very deep ones. I appreciated the last one from Mike. I just genuinely that aspect of not only just concerns regarding mental health issues with military service people, but just for men in general. I think that's something that's not often talked about and it's frowned upon. And I'm glad, you each kind of in your own ways shared that perspective. I know a lot that Justin has shared with me in regards to his service before and after. I've learned and I continue to learn. So thank you all for being here, and I welcome you back in the future. Just a quick little promo for next week. We are going to debut our first episode of a We Are Parents talking about parenting and living, being parents without religion with Justin, Laura McGee, Richard Gilliger, and a special guest, Bree. So that was recently pre-recorded. So that will premiere next week for us. Yeah. Anything you all want to talk about, say before we hop on out?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And
yeah, this was
certainly
really cool.
The best way to spend my Veterans Day that I could think of. So I was appreciative for the invite.
Absolutely. No, thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invite. It was
Are you sure that your free meal at Applebee's wasn't a better night?
Yeah. Do I get a free appy at
it's too crowded. I thought about doing that today.
Fuck that. Fuck that crowd.
I don't have that. And yes,
We-
Enter, we named it IFWAP because Justin told me to.
That is.
I was
You know
promised
it's the
chicken
reason.
wings.
You know, it's the reason.
If we do this
Women's
next
Air
year,
Patrol, by the way.
I'm sorry.
if we do this again next year, we need to do a drinking game where everyone takes a shot for every Full Metal Jacket reference.
Oh,
Yes.
Jesus.
I am down.
As long as
will
I can
take
do
you
tokens,
motherfuckers down.
Somebody,
watched-
somebody has to take my
Few
shots for
episodes.
me.
Let's do it.
I think I watched what 20, 30 minutes of that the first 20 or 30 minutes of that movie.
That's all you need to
And
do.
once- yeah,
Well, I
and
don't
I
know.
was already done, and then it pivots to some completely different scene where they're off base, and I was just like, oh
Yeah,
God,
no,
there's still
yeah.
more movie.
It's a
I
different
can't
movie
stop.
after the first 30
I
minutes.
stopped.
You only
Yeah,
need you only need boot camp, and then you're done.
I
It's
was
two
done.
different
That's
movies.
it. Saw it once. Don't need to relive it. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you. By all means, link for Discord's in the chat. Join us if you are willing. Till next time, we'll see you next week.